this might have one of the best slasher costume designs of all time. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I hope you guys are having a great day. We are going to talk about the 1981 film, The Prowler. This is arguably one of my favorite slasher films of all time. I love everything about this, and we're going to just get right into it. This really opens up a very unique way. It opens up with, well, World War II propaganda, in a way. It talks about the commercials and talk about all war. And I thought it was a really interesting thing, and it jumps right to a letter written by this woman. And it's read out loud of this woman basically like deuces to the guy that's fighting World War II for some random guy that was just there. Now, I feel like this is a very typical thing that happens during World War II, which is so wild to me that I get it. You're like, I can't wait forever, because if you never got news that the guy died, maybe you should just wait until he returns. But she found a man that she's in love with, and she wrote this to this man, and she's like, love, Rosemary. This is the opening of the movie. I immediately love the style of the tone of this movie. And with that being said, we go to the graduation dance, and this is 1945, so it's after the war. Rosemary's there. We meet Rosemary with the guy that she is going together with. I think that's the term back in the 40s. And they're like walking by a janitor, and the janitor like bumps into Rosemary, and the guy's like, hey, watch your mitts, get your mitts off of her, fella. Love it. I love the 40s slang, man. It's so funny. They go out to this little romantic little like dock that's in the middle of the lake. It's really nice. It's cute romantic stuff that teenagers would go, and they start like making out. Granted, they're not teenagers, they are adults, so there's that. I really like the beginning of this movie. I like the setting of it. When I first started watching it, I thought this movie was gonna be set in the 40s the whole time, and I don't think I would have been opposed to it if it was. It would have been a different little feel, because a lot of the movies I've watched that are slashers usually are just set in the 80s. So I thought The Prowler was gonna be set in the 40s. I thought it was gonna be like The Town That Dreaded Sundown. I thought it was gonna be like that kind of style, but it wasn't, which is fine. I mean, that was based off a true story. So the kids, they're all making out, they're necking out there, and the lights go off, and you only see the boots of the Prowler. You don't actually see what he looks like in this part, and I think that's fine. What happens is, well, he kills him with a pitchfork. He stabs the dude through the back, and the girl's still alive, and she's screaming, no, no, no. Boom. Cut right to the title, The Prowler. And that's it. I think that's such a smart way to begin the movie. There's no like long dragged out of like who's all part of this movie or anything like that. It just goes The Prowler, time skip to 1980 for the graduation dance. I think that was such a unique thing to do in this that I was just blown away by how much I really liked it. I watched this movie a couple years ago, and rewatching it, I just love so much elements of this movie. This movie truly does feel like the 80s, and I think that's perfectly fine. Obviously it's 1981, but there's a lot to this movie that encapsulates a lot of parts of this movie that a lot of slashers do, and you can definitely tell it really does a lot of the slasher portrayal in this. And when we're jumping into 1980, we meet all the characters. We meet Pam, who is, well, the final girl, and then we meet a police officer named Mark. Mark is flirting with one of the girls that she's wearing a booty short, so her booty is just hanging out. And he's like flirting with her, and he's flirting with another blonde. But he has like a thing for Pam. My only problem is with this one, and this is my critique on these kind of slasher films versus like The Burning, where The Burning does a relationship, but it's not like, it's so organic in that one. Way better than I think a lot of slasher films do. This one, Pam and Mark do have like a little bit of a thing. They do have a crush on each other, but he's like checking out the babe within the booty shorts, and they go out to eat. And the movie really sets the tone pretty quickly of what's going to happen. The sheriff in town is like, I'm going on a fishing trip. Mark, you're in charge for the weekend. You don't have to worry about it. And they do mention this thing about, well, there's this psycho that like stole a cop car, and he's like stealing, and he's like heading towards this town. And some people are actually opposed to this graduation party because of what happened in 1945. This was 35 years ago. And they're like, well, what if this happens again? Guess what is going to happen again? There's a lot of things in this movie that really portrays that these girls are all one tropey kind of things. And this is where I think the slow slasher thing of tropes really start evolving. Now, Friday the 13th did it, and I think a lot of movies are like, we're going to do everything that Friday the 13th did. Granted, everyone's going to talk about Halloween and their little tropes, but Friday the 13th really implemented the tropes, and that's where the slasher drama just is like, we're doing all these. So you have like the ditzy, slutty kind of girl. You have the first kill, literally as soon as you see nudity, you know that character character is gonna die. And it's one of the blondes in this movie named Sherry. She gets killed first because she's the only one naked and she's the only one that's taking a shower, and she gets killed in the shower, which is pretty brutal. It's definitely not the best kill though. The best kill in this entire thing is Carl. We'll get there in a moment. Like I said, the whole thing, there's not anything deep about this. There's nothing really deep. There's not a lot of layers in this movie. It's more of just like, this is happening, then this, and this. But I really like there's elements in this movie where when the girls are getting ready, it shoots right back to the Prowler getting ready. And it goes back and forth between the two settings of getting prepared. And I have to talk about it now. You kind of see more of the Prowler's design. He is dressed up as a World War II soldier. He's just wearing like a mesh mask, so you can't see his face at all. I love this design so much. It's arguably one of my favorite slasher killers like design. It's so unique and so simple, but it's also so terrifying in a way. And it's weird to say that, but he's like loading a gun, he has like this long knife, and he has like his pitchfork. He has so many weapons that I just really like. I think it's so unique in a way, because a lot of people are just doing like, it's a man in a mask, that's it. This one doesn't do that. It's a man in this unique uniform, and he's in a mask, but just the way that he presents himself in this, and I love it so much. That's probably one of the reasons why I really got into the Prowler in general, because I love the design of it. I'm gonna jump around a little bit. Like I said, it's a lot of the same beats. The kids go to the graduation dance. Sherry's left behind because she's showering. Pam's like, I can wait for you, but Sherry's like, no, you can go. And this is where Carl goes in there and he sees Sherry completely naked, and she's like, you can come join me if you want, if you hurry. This is probably the best kill, is where Carl's like taking his clothes off and he's sitting on the edge of the bed. The Prowler shows up, puts him in a headlock, and stabs him through the head. Badass. This whole scene's really good. This is a really good start to the scene, and then Sherry dies too. This is where I noticed though, when I'm watching these kind of movies, that the best kind of kills are the ones where they pace it pretty nicely. Sometimes they do that in a lot of the slasher movies, but the ones that are pumping out and they just become so bad that they're just like, ooh, no. That's kind of what happens, but the Prowler does a lot like The Burning, where they show a kill at the beginning. It's pretty brutal, but it makes sense, and then you show the next kill, but you really pace it out. And Friday the 13th did that at first, and then they just slowly just start killing fools quickly, showing a lot of TNA quickly. That's just how it is. With this, it really implements the slow pace of the kill, because every kill was so delicious in a way that I really liked it in these movies, that these kills are so tight knit. It's also from Tom Savini, so it's like, what a go. Of course, watching these kind of kills, I appreciate them so much, and I really like those elements. This movie does do a pretty good job at pacing in like this little bit of a thrill, because Pam has to go back, because guess what, that slutty girl was dancing with Mark, and then she poured juice on, well, Pam's dress, so Pam has to go back to the dorm room. When she goes back, the shower's still, this is the only thing that kind of bothers me a lot, is the shower's still on. So like, how long has she been gone for? And Pam's like, oh, sorry, Sherry, I'll close the door on you. And she closes the door, even though like Sherry's like dead. I mean, and Carl's in there too. But when you have questioned the shower running still, I don't know, maybe that's just me. Doesn't matter though. And she changes, and the whole time you see the door slowly open as well, but nothing really happens. She leaves, and the Prowler, during this time, the Prowler's like putting a rose on, well, Sherry's dead corpse. That's a thing he does in the very beginning, and we got some hints coming in the future when it comes to that. Pam walks away, and she can hear the door upstairs closed, and she looks, and you actually see the full reveal of the Prowler. Again, I love this design. And I'm going to tell you, Pam can haul it in heels. I was impressed. Like, she can book it in heels. I was like, wow, this girl can run in heels. Because I always see like women try to run in heels and like other movies, they fall immediately. Pam's not doing that. She is not falling over. Craziness. And this is where she runs into this random homeless guy that grabs her, and she's like, get away from me. And then she just escapes him. Then Mark shows up and he inspects the spot, and like, there's nobody there, even though the Prowler's watching it. But my thought is, how could this homeless man escape so, like, how can he escape? It's in grass and it's dirt, so it's like, I know it's gonna be hard to wheel yourself away. So I'm like, what are you doing here? Now, they talk about him earlier in the movie, but it's like, it's almost unnecessary to have him in there. You know, it's one of those things, I just never really got it. I don't know, it just feels so out of pocket. And the rest of the movie is basically them just slowly figuring out plots of this movie. They're figuring out these roses and Rosemary and all these really fun interactions of this movie of the mystery. Who is the Prowler? And we call the sheriff. There's a really funny scene where Mark tries to call the sheriff. This overweight, like, desk assistant is just there, and he like picks up the phone. He doesn't want to do any of that, so he just like sits there and gaslights, and it really helps the mood because it's like a really intense stuff going on, but he just like makes it a little bit of a comedy. I almost really appreciated that. It didn't bother me nearly as much as I thought it would. That was a really fun scene. There's a lot of moments in this that's just really fun and gruesome, but when you figure out the mystery of who is the actual killer, they don't tell you immediately. They never tell you. And I thought that was really fun. Like, Pam's all figuring this out, and when they go back to the Major's house, the Prowler's in there, and we have a nice little long fight, and you have this random guy throughout this whole movie named Otto, who Otto is kind of a weird guy. You meet him in the cemetery, he's kind of creepy, he's just chilling, and at the very end, he shoots the Prowler before the Prowler kills Pam, and then the Prowler like isn't dead because they have like this little heartfelt moment, and Otto's just like nodding his head towards Pam, and then Pam's like, oh, thank you. And it's like this like little music, and this is definitely a ripoff from Friday the 13th, without a doubt. This is definitely like the little ripoff because the Prowler gets up, uses his 2-barrel shotgun, and booms Otto, and Otto flings against the wall. And then there's a long moment of the Prowler and Pam fighting. Pam puts the barrel up under his chin, and the Prowler reveals himself. It's actually the sheriff, because the sheriff's like a nut job, and she booms and blows up his head. The next day, Mark's actually alive because they tease Mark being killed in this, and I'm not the biggest fan of that in general. The movie ends by Pam seeing the bodies, and she's screaming because she thinks Carl's still alive, and that's how the movie ends. I did skip up quite a bit of stuff because, again, it's your typical slasher stuff. Character dies, main character is figuring out the whole plot, survives some incidents. It's a lot of the things that I have talked about plenty of times in tropes for slashers. Now, I try not to really hate on these really early ones because I personally think these are way better than the mid-80s ones because they follow those tropes, but they always try to do something a little unique. I love the Prowler. I think the Prowler is probably arguably one of my favorite slashers of all time. It's definitely my top 10, and I want to do a video of my favorite slashers in the future. These tropes in this Prowler really do kind of hamper it some ways. I love the elements of the setting of it. I love how it's bringing back like the 1940s. I really think this movie would have been even better if it was set in the 1940s. I think it would have been way cooler, but that's okay. That's for another time. Would I love to have seen this movie get a remake? Yeah, but I'm also like, no, it's kind of like The Burning, where I would love to see both of them get a remake. I'm afraid that they would really push those typical slashers, and they would put it over the edge where it just doesn't feel like the original movie. That's one of the issues. But I really do like the Prowler. I think the Prowler is really fun. If I had to give this an honest rating, it was a 4 out of 5 for me. But like I said, the only tropes, I didn't really care about the tropes too much, but there's just some minor things I was like, why is this in here? This doesn't make much sense to me. Especially the shower scene where Sherry's like dead in the shower. We don't know how long Pam's been gone for. I guess like at least a half hour. I feel like if I went into the dorm and the shower's still running, I would have checked on him at least. But I did like this movie. I think the movie's really fun, exciting, and I highly recommend anyone who's never seen The Prowler, go check it out. And last but not least, make sure you guys just don't do a graduation dance. Simple as that.